Chapter 1. The Christmas Table. Christmas was supposed to be a celebration, a day filled with warmth, laughter, and the comfort of family. For Rachel, however, it felt more like walking into a courtroom where the verdict had already been decided. The moment she stepped through her parents' front door with her daughter Mia, she sensed something was wrong. The smiles were there, but they felt forced. The greetings sounded polite, but there was no warmth behind them. Rachel had spent most of her life reading the hidden messages behind her family's words, and she knew this atmosphere all too well. Mia held tightly to her mother's hand as they entered the house. She was only 7 years old, but she had already learned to recognize uncomfortable situations. Children often understand far more than adults realize. The house looked beautiful. Colored lights decorated every corner. A large Christmas tree stood proudly in the living room, covered in ornaments collected over decades. Holiday music played softly through hidden speakers. Everything appeared perfect. Yet Rachel felt completely out of place. Her older sister, Eliza, was already seated near the center of attention, exactly where she always seemed to be. Her husband, Connor, sat beside her, laughing loudly at jokes nobody else found particularly funny. Their children ran through the house freely, knocking into furniture and interrupting conversations without receiving so much as a warning. Meanwhile, Mia quietly found a corner and sat down without being asked. Rachel noticed the difference immediately. She always did. For years, there had been one set of rules for Eliza's family and another for everyone else. Dinner began normally enough. Plates were filled, drinks were poured, small talk drifted around the table, but beneath every conversation ran an undercurrent of tension. Rachel's mother commented on how exhausted she looked. Eliza remarked that Mia's dress was very simple for Christmas. Connor casually asked whether Rachel was still struggling financially. Each comment arrived wrapped in fake concern. Rachel forced herself to smile. She reminded herself that she was here for Mia. She reminded herself that it was Christmas. She reminded herself that causing a scene would only make things worse. For years, she had mastered the art of swallowing her feelings. Unfortunately, some wounds eventually become too deep to ignore. As dinner continued, Rachel found herself looking around the table. Her father avoided eye contact. Her mother seemed unusually tense. Eliza looked confident, almost prepared. It was the expression that bothered Rachel the most. People wear a certain look when they know something others don't. And Eliza was wearing that look. Rachel felt her stomach tighten. Something was coming. She didn't know what, but she knew it wasn't good. The room gradually became quieter. Conversations slowed. Forks stopped moving. Then Eliza carefully placed her fork on the table and cleared her throat. Rachel immediately knew. Whatever happened next had been planned long before she arrived. Chapter 2. The Announcement. Silence settled over the dining room. Rachel looked from face to face. Nobody seemed surprised. Nobody looked confused. Nobody asked what was happening. That alone told her everything. They had discussed this before she arrived. They had prepared for it. The only person who didn't know was Rachel herself. "There's something we need to talk about," Eliza said. Her voice was calm, almost rehearsed. Rachel glanced toward Mia. The little girl had stopped eating. She looked nervous. Rachel hated that. Children should never have to sit through adult cruelty. "What is it?" Rachel asked quietly. Eliza folded her hands. "We've all been talking." Rachel's heart sank. Whenever someone begins a sentence with those words, the outcome is rarely good. Eliza continued. "We think it's best if you stop coming here." The room felt colder. Rachel stared at her. For a moment, she thought she had misunderstood. "What?" Eliza remained calm. "We think it's time for some distance." Rachel looked toward her mother. Surely she would object. Surely she would say something. Instead, her mother nodded. We've all been under a lot of stress. Rachel looked toward her father. He lowered his eyes. No disagreement. No defense. Nothing. The silence hurt more than any insult. Then came the sentence Rachel would never forget. Christmas is better without all this tension. Her mother said it softly, almost kindly, as though she were discussing the weather. Rachel felt something break inside her. Not dramatically, not loudly, just a quiet realization. A realization that perhaps she had spent years trying to earn love from people who had never intended to give it. Across the table, Mia sat frozen. Her tiny hands gripped her fork. She wasn't crying. That somehow made it worse. Rachel suddenly understood that her daughter had seen this pattern for years. She had simply been too young to explain it. The room waited. They expected Rachel to argue, to defend herself, to beg for another chance. Instead, Rachel took a slow breath. Then she turned toward her daughter. "Mia," she said gently. The little girl immediately looked up. "Can you get your coat?" Mia nodded without hesitation. "Okay." She stood and left the room. The speed with which she obeyed nearly shattered Rachel's heart. No child should be that ready to leave her grandparents' home. Yet Mia acted as though she had been expecting this moment. That realization hurt more than anything else said that evening. Once Mia disappeared into the hallway, Eliza crossed her arms. Connor relaxed. Rachel's mother sighed with relief. They thought the problem had solved itself. They thought Rachel was finally accepting her place. They had no idea what was about to happen. Chapter 3, The 3 Envelopes. Rachel slowly stood from her chair. Every eye in the room followed her. Eliza appeared satisfied. Connor smirked. Rachel's mother looked relieved. Her father remained silent. For years, Rachel had dreamed of a different relationship with these people. She had imagined family gatherings filled with genuine affection. She had imagined being valued, being appreciated, being seen. Instead, she had spent decades trying to prove she deserved a place at her own family's table. And suddenly she was tired. Tired of proving. Tired of explaining. Tired of begging for scraps of acceptance. Without saying a word, she walked into the kitchen. Hidden inside a cabinet behind several serving trays sat 3 large envelopes. She had placed them there earlier in the day. At the time, she had imagined smiles, gratitude, perhaps even healing. Now those hopes felt foolish. Rachel returned to the dining room carrying the envelopes. Each one had a name written clearly on the front. One for her mother, one for her father, one for Eliza. Immediately, their expressions changed. Curiosity replaced confidence. "What are those?" Connor asked. Rachel looked at them calmly. "Christmas gifts." Eliza laughed. A short, dismissive laugh. "You think gifts are going to change anything?" Rachel smiled. "No." She held up the first envelope. Then she tore it directly down the middle. The ripping sound echoed through the room. Her mother's smile disappeared instantly. Rachel lifted the second envelope. Again she tore it slowly. This time, her father looked up. For the first time all evening, he appeared concerned. Connor shifted uncomfortably in his chair. The third envelope belonged to Eliza. Rachel didn't hesitate. She ripped it cleanly in half. Then she placed the pieces on the table. Nobody spoke. Nobody moved. The confidence that had filled the room moments earlier vanished completely. For the first time that evening, Rachel saw uncertainty. Real uncertainty. Something inside those envelopes mattered. And suddenly, everyone knew it. Without another word, Rachel turned and walked toward the hallway. Mia stood waiting with her backpack and coat already on. Rachel took her daughter's hand. Together they walked toward the front door. Behind them, the family remained frozen. Confused. Concerned. Curious. They still didn't know exactly what had been destroyed, but they knew enough to be afraid. And as Rachel stepped into the cold winter air, she realized something important. For the first time in her life, she wasn't leaving because she had been rejected. She was leaving because she finally understood her worth. Chapter 4: The Man Who Changed Everything. As Rachel drove away from her parents' house that Christmas night, memories flooded her mind. The road ahead was dark, but her thoughts carried her years into the past. Long before Mia was born, long before Christmas dinners became battles, there had been Daniel. Daniel entered Rachel's life when she had nearly given up believing she deserved happiness. They met through mutual friends during a casual gathering. Unlike most people Rachel knew, Daniel listened when she spoke. He didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. He didn't treat her opinions like background noise. At first, Rachel didn't know what to do with that kind of attention. Years of being overlooked had convinced her that love had to be earned through sacrifice. Daniel disagreed. Whenever Rachel apologized unnecessarily, Daniel would gently ask why. Whenever she minimized her accomplishments, Daniel would remind her of her value. Whenever she described the way her family treated her, Daniel listened carefully. One evening, after hearing another story about her sister receiving praise for something Rachel had actually done, Daniel looked at her and said something she never forgot. "Rachel, the problem isn't you." The words stunned her. Nobody had ever said that before. For years, she had assumed she was somehow responsible for every criticism, every rejection, every disappointment. Daniel saw through it immediately. Over time, he became the steady foundation she never had growing up. When they married, Rachel believed she had finally found a family of her own. Then Mia was born. The day Daniel held their daughter for the first time, tears filled his eyes. He promised he would always protect her. He promised she would never doubt she was loved. And for years, he kept that promise. Their life wasn't perfect. There were bills. There were long work days. There were stressful months and unexpected expenses. But there was also laughter. There was trust. There was peace. For the first time, Rachel felt safe. Unfortunately, life doesn't always ask permission before taking away the things we love most. The accident happened on an ordinary morning. Daniel kissed Rachel goodbye. He hugged Mia. He promised he would be home for dinner. Then he left. And he never came back. The phone call arrived that afternoon. Rachel remembered every second of it. The voice. The silence afterward. The feeling of the world suddenly tilting beneath her feet. Nothing prepares someone for hearing that the person they love most is gone. Nothing. The following months felt like a blur. Funeral arrangements. Paperwork. Legal meetings. Insurance claims. Questions without answers. Rachel moved through each day because she had to. Not because she wanted to. Every morning, she got out of bed for one reason. Mia. Only Mia. Chapter 5: The Secret They Never Knew. The public version of Daniel's death was simple. A tragic workplace accident. An unfortunate event. A terrible loss. The truth was far more complicated. As investigations continued, serious problems began surfacing. Safety concerns had been ignored. Warnings had gone unanswered. Shortcuts had been taken. Documents revealed mistakes that should never have happened. The accident wasn't simply bad luck. It was preventable. That realization brought Rachel both anger and heartbreak. Nothing could bring Daniel back. But somebody needed to be held accountable. The legal process stretched on for months. Lawyers requested documents. Experts reviewed evidence. Meetings filled Rachel's calendar. Many days she wanted to quit. Many nights she cried herself to sleep. Still, she continued. Not for revenge. For justice. Eventually, a settlement was reached. The amount was far beyond anything Rachel had imagined. When she saw the number on the page, she stared at it for several minutes. It didn't feel real. Money had never mattered much to her. Not compared to Daniel. Not compared to Mia. Still, she understood what it meant. Security. Stability. A future. For the first time since Daniel died, she could stop worrying about whether she could provide for her daughter. She could protect Mia. She could give her opportunities. She could build a future Daniel would have wanted for them. Yet even then, Rachel's first instinct wasn't selfish. Her first thought was family. Her parents struggled financially. Their mortgage remained unpaid. Retirement looked uncertain. Eliza constantly bounced between failed plans and temporary jobs. Connor spent money faster than he earned it. Rachel knew all of this. And despite everything, she still wanted to help. Part of her hoped generosity could repair what years of hurt had damaged. She imagined surprising everyone at Christmas. She imagined paying off debts. She imagined finally hearing words she had waited her entire life to hear. "We're proud of you." Instead, she received a very different message. "Leave and never come back." The irony would have been funny if it wasn't so painful. The gifts inside those envelopes represented life-changing opportunities. The first envelope contained documents that would have completely paid off her parents' mortgage. The second included enough money to erase their outstanding debts. The third contained a substantial financial gift intended to help Eliza start over. Together, the total value approached $500,000. None of them knew that when they told Rachel to leave. And by the time they realized it, the opportunity was gone. Chapter 6, the night everything changed. Rachel eventually checked into a hotel several towns away. The lobby was warm. The receptionist greeted Mia with genuine kindness. It seemed like such a small thing. Yet after the evening they had experienced, simple kindness felt extraordinary. Their room contained 2 comfortable beds. Mia climbed onto one immediately. Rachel sat on the other and stared at the wall. The silence felt strange. For years, she had imagined standing up to her family. Now that it had happened, she felt both relieved and devastated. Mia broke the silence first. "Grandma doesn't like me." The words struck harder than any insult Rachel had received that night. Children rarely invent these conclusions. They notice patterns adults pretend don't exist. Rachel looked at her daughter. Mia wasn't angry. She wasn't dramatic. She simply sounded certain, as though she had been quietly collecting evidence for years. Rachel's heart broke. She realized her daughter had spent far too much time trying to earn affection from people who offered it conditionally. The same lesson Rachel had learned growing up. A lesson she never wanted Mia to inherit. Rachel moved closer and wrapped her arms around her daughter. "No matter what happens," she said softly, "you never have to make yourself smaller so someone else will accept you." Mia nodded slowly. The child seemed to be processing something far beyond her years. Later, they watched movies together. They shared snacks. They laughed occasionally. For a few hours, the room felt peaceful. Then Rachel's phone started ringing. Again. And again. And again. Her mother. Her father. Eliza. Connor. Voicemail after voicemail. Text after text. The same people who wanted her gone suddenly seemed desperate to reach her. Rachel ignored the calls while Mia remained awake. Once her daughter finally fell asleep, she listened to the messages. Panic. Confusion. Desperation. The tone had completely changed. Nobody talked about boundaries anymore. Nobody talked about distance. Nobody talked about family tension. Instead, they wanted explanations. They wanted answers. Most importantly, they wanted the envelopes back. Rachel finally answered one call. Her mother's voice arrived immediately. Please come back. Not I'm sorry. Not we were wrong. Not how is Mia. Just please come back. Rachel listened quietly. Her father demanded solutions. Eliza complained about consequences. Connor insisted everyone had overreacted. The conversation revealed exactly what Rachel needed to know. They weren't mourning the relationship. They were mourning the opportunity. When the call ended, Rachel set her phone aside. Outside, snow drifted across empty roads. Inside, Mia slept peacefully. For the first time in years, Rachel saw her future clearly. It would not include begging people to love her. It would not include buying acceptance. And it would certainly not include sacrificing her daughter's well-being for the comfort of people who had already shown exactly who they were. That Christmas night marked the end of one chapter of Rachel's life, and the beginning of another. Chapter 7, The Lies Begin. The days following Christmas were surprisingly quiet. For nearly 3 days, Rachel heard almost nothing from her family. No surprise visits. No emotional voicemails. No dramatic confrontations. At first, the silence felt peaceful. She focused on Mia. They returned home. Life slowly settled into a routine. School resumed. Homework returned. Breakfasts, bedtime stories, and ordinary moments filled their days. Rachel hoped the worst was over. She was wrong. The attack arrived from a direction she should have expected. Social media. One evening, while scrolling through her phone, Rachel saw a post shared by Eliza. The photo showed Eliza smiling beside the Christmas tree. Their parents stood nearby. Connor smiled proudly at the camera. To anyone unfamiliar with the situation, they looked like the perfect family. The caption told a different story. According to Eliza, Rachel had ruined Christmas. According to Eliza, Rachel had arrived expecting sympathy and financial support. According to Eliza, the family had finally established healthy boundaries. According to Eliza, Rachel reacted with anger, humiliation, and emotional manipulation. The post never mentioned Mia. It never mentioned the rejection. It never mentioned being told to leave. Most importantly, it never mentioned the envelopes. Thousands of words. Not a single honest sentence. Comments began appearing almost immediately. Relatives expressed concern. Friends offered support. Distant family members criticized Rachel despite knowing nothing about the situation. Many accepted Eliza's version without question. After all, it was easier. People often prefer simple stories. A villain. A victim. A clear conclusion. Rachel had spent her entire life being assigned the role of villain whenever family conflict appeared. Why would this be different? Then Eliza made a mistake. She became greedy. In an attempt to gain additional sympathy, she revealed information she should never have mentioned. She publicly referenced Daniel's settlement. She implied Rachel had become wealthy. She suggested Rachel refused to help her struggling family despite receiving a substantial payout. The implication was clear. Rachel was selfish, ungrateful, greedy. The reaction was immediate. People who previously knew nothing about Rachel suddenly felt entitled to judge her. Messages flooded her phone. Some were curious. Others were cruel. Many demanded explanations. Rachel read them quietly. Then she closed the phone. For years, she had remained silent. For years, she had allowed others to control the narrative. For years, she believed peace required accepting unfair treatment. Not anymore. Chapter 8, RECAPTS. The following morning, Rachel sat at her kitchen table with a cup of coffee. Mia colored pictures nearby. Sunlight entered through the window. The house felt calm. Safe. For the first time in years, Rachel wasn't afraid. Not because she felt powerful, because she was finally tired of being afraid. She opened her banking records. Month after month appeared on the screen. Transfers, payments, support, years of quiet assistance. Every payment represented a sacrifice. Every transfer represented help freely given. Help nobody had ever publicly acknowledged. Then Rachel found something else. A social media post made by her mother months earlier. The post praised herself for providing Rachel with temporary financial assistance after Daniel's death. Reading it now felt surreal. The amount was tiny compared to what Rachel and Daniel had given over the years. Yet her mother had publicly celebrated it as evidence of generosity. Rachel gathered screenshots, organized dates, collected facts. Then she wrote a simple statement. No insults, no emotional outbursts, no dramatic accusations. Just facts. She explained that she and Daniel had financially supported her parents for years. She explained that the assistance had always been private. She explained that Christmas ended when she and her daughter were told to leave. She explained that her family discovered the envelopes only after demanding she never return. Then she posted the evidence. The internet responded quickly. Questions appeared. People noticed inconsistencies. Relatives who had rushed to judge suddenly became much quieter. The comments under Eliza's post began changing. Individuals started asking difficult questions. Questions Eliza couldn't answer honestly. Questions her parents didn't want discussed publicly. Questions Connor desperately tried to avoid. The story they created started collapsing. One fact at a time. One receipt at a time. One screenshot at a time. Within days, Eliza deleted her original post. Then she edited another. Then she removed comments. Then she stopped responding altogether. The narrative was no longer under her control. For the first time, the truth was louder than the lies. Chapter 9, The Visit. Several days later, Rachel heard a knock at her front door. She looked through the peephole. Her stomach tightened. Her parents stood outside. Eliza stood beside them. Connor lingered behind everyone else. Rachel immediately understood. This wasn't a visit about love. This wasn't a visit about reconciliation. This was damage control. She opened the door slightly. Her mother smiled. The smile looked forced, artificial, carefully constructed. The kind of smile people wear when they desperately need something. In her hand sat a large cake. Apparently, they believed frosting could repair betrayal. "Can we talk?" her mother asked. Rachel remained silent. "We've all had time to calm down," Eliza added. Rachel almost laughed. Interesting choice of words. Nobody had calmed down. They had simply lost public support. That wasn't growth. That was inconvenience. Her father cleared his throat. "We're family." The statement hung in the air. Rachel considered it carefully. Family. The same word people often use when asking others to tolerate behavior they would never accept from strangers. Family. The word that had excused decades of unfair treatment. Family. The word used whenever accountability became uncomfortable. Rachel looked at them. Then she looked at Mia, standing behind her. The little girl immediately moved closer. Not toward her grandparents. Toward her mother. That single action revealed everything. Children instinctively move toward safety. Mia had made her choice. Her mother noticed. So did Rachel. For a brief moment, nobody spoke. Then Rachel finally answered. "No." The word shocked them. Her mother blinked. "What?" "No." Rachel repeated it calmly. No anger. No shouting. No tears. Just certainty. She explained that access to Mia was a privilege, not a right. She explained that trust, once broken, required more than apologies. She explained that showing up with cake did not erase cruelty. Most importantly, she explained that protecting her daughter came first. Before family expectations. Before social pressure. Before guilt. Before everything. Eliza's expression hardened. The mask slipped. Only for a second. But Rachel saw it. The entitlement. The frustration. The anger. Then it vanished. Replaced by another fake smile. The performance continued. Rachel was finished watching. She gently closed the door. Then she locked it. And for the first time in her life, creating distance felt healthier than maintaining peace. Chapter 10. The Life They Lost. Months passed. Life improved. Not instantly. Not magically. Healing rarely works that way. Grief remained. Rachel still missed Daniel every day. Certain songs still triggered memories. Certain dates still hurt. Certain moments still felt incomplete. But the fear disappeared. The constant anxiety vanished. The pressure lifted. Rachel purchased a modest home. Not extravagant. Not luxurious. Just stable. Safe. Permanent. Mia decorated her room exactly how she wanted. They planted flowers in the yard. They created new traditions. Slowly, the house transformed into something Rachel had rarely experienced growing up. A home. The settlement money remained carefully managed. Most entered investments. Some funded Mia's future education. Emergency savings were established. Long-term security became possible. Rachel didn't waste the opportunity Daniel's sacrifice had provided. She honored it. Meanwhile, news from her family occasionally reached her through relatives. The situation wasn't good. Financial problems continued. Relationships fractured. Arguments increased. Blame shifted from person to person. Nobody seemed willing to accept responsibility. Yet one detail appeared repeatedly. Regret. Not regret for hurting Rachel. Not regret for hurting Mia. Regret for losing what could have been. The amount haunted them. $500,000. A number they discussed repeatedly. A future they nearly possessed. An opportunity destroyed by their own actions. They replayed Christmas constantly. Different versions. Different excuses. Different explanations. But the outcome never changed. They had chosen rejection. And rejection carried consequences. Sometimes Rachel wondered whether keeping the money would bother her. Whether guilt would eventually appear. Whether she would question her decision. It never happened. Because she understood something important. Giving them the money after everything that happened would have taught Mia a dangerous lesson. It would have taught her that love could be purchased. It would have taught her that cruelty carried rewards. It would have taught her that people could mistreat you and still deserve unlimited access to your life. Rachel refused to teach that lesson. Instead, she taught a different one. Self-respect. Boundaries. Protection. Dignity. As years passed, Mia grew happier. Her confidence increased. Her laughter became more frequent. The little girl who once questioned whether her grandmother liked her stopped asking. Not because she forgot. Because she no longer needed the answer. She already knew where she belonged. One evening, while watching the sunset from their porch, Mia asked a simple question. Do you think Dad would be proud of us? Rachel felt tears fill her eyes. Not sad tears. Grateful ones. She smiled and wrapped an arm around her daughter. Yes, she said softly. More than you can imagine. And for the first time in a very long time, Rachel truly believed it. The family she spent years trying to keep together had fallen apart. But the family she chose to protect survived. And in the end, that was the only victory that mattered. The end.